What's up, everybody? Welcome to a winning Wednesday. We're back here. Heat Ratio Sports Network. Dave Kleckner, Marc Tomasini, Philly. Fourth and go. 4 for 4 plus so much more. But it's bird season. It's bird season. So you know what we'll be talking about tonight. And I just cracked that can because I'm ready to pour one out and talk a little bit about the Eagles. I might have a different perspective, Marc. I don't know. We didn't talk about before the show, but can't wait to talk about week 1 at New England. And we'll talk about week 2 coming up here tomorrow night with the Eagles on Thursday Night Football and get into our 3-packs and all that and more. But with that, let me pass it over to my man, Marc Tomasini.
What up? What up? Eagles 1-0. Everything seems good. And it's really not as bad as you think, but we definitely have a lot to get over. I feel like the score that I had kind of said it was what it was, but didn't think it was going to be as ugly as it was. So definitely a lot to get into. Probably not on cloud 9 when it comes to confidence, but I don't think I'm as dreadful as a lot of people see it either. I think just some things that we can fix, but an interesting way to start the season. And then we get right back into it tomorrow night.
Yeah. So I had 27-17, and I'm not that far off, and I'm not that mad at it. I thought it'd be a sloppy game. I thought it'd be an under. And I just thought in the end, not playing the players in the preseason, you can say what you want about going out there and playing them in the practices. I don't give two shits about that. You're still wearing a red jersey and a padded helmet. You're not getting hit. And Nick, that was his first thing in his press conference. He kind of alluded to it, which I really thought was cool. He showed a little vulnerability there and was just like, you know what, maybe I did mess up. Maybe I'm going to make some notes. Maybe I'm going to think about it. And I like that. But then 3.5-point spread, 4-point spread, wherever you got it, they covered. They're 1-0. They won a game on the road, which they're a decent road team, but a team that didn't cover a ton last year, actually under 500 and covering against the spread. So I take everything out of this game as good win. Good win, tough win. Defense had to step up then twice on 2 separate drives. Last year we won 38-35, I think it was, in Detroit. And at that time, it was like, oh, we just beat a 3-win team by 3 points. Everybody had the same feelings, and we end up 14-3. Right. Now we just won against maybe a better team than Detroit was at the start of last season, a tougher defense, obviously. You gave a Hall of Fame coach 6 months to prepare for your offense. We had 2 new coordinators. Like, just hear all the things that we're saying, and they still win by 5. I'm good, man. I feel fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of weird things to happen all at the start. I heard some really interesting stats leading into the game. I think it might have actually been on Saturday, just how the Super Bowl loser the next year, I want to say, was like 4-13 against the spread. 5-18, I think, straight up. Something along those lines. Yes. I know I'm mixing up those numbers somewhere.
No, you're close.
And we know the tale. Like, there's one of 2 ways that you can go after losing the Super Bowl. You can either bomb, which we've had experience with back in 2004, but that was really the TO implosion year. And then 2018, the Eagles started off very slow. Nick ended up having to come back in, and they're an Alshon catch away from going to the conference championship, where they had a road to the Super Bowl. So it can go one or 2 ways. And this is the second time that we're dealing with it in our obviously I talk about the Super Bowl last time we were the winners, but you look at teams lately who have lost the Super Bowl and come back, like Cincinnati. They were knocking on the door again. What was it, last year or the year before? So, it's just all about the team. The Eagles brought back a lot of the guys that they had. They might have gotten better, if not stayed the same. Obviously, we lost a lot more on defense when it came to free agency. So, but you made a couple of really good points there. Bill Belichick had a plethora of time to look over, and you have 2 new coordinators. That completely changes the way that the game is run, and you could see it's Brian Johnson's first time really as the helm. But to your very first point, we need to get back to playing a little bit in the preseason. Like, we've gotten away from that because I think everybody thinks that they're invincible and you're afraid of getting hurt. I totally understand. You don't want to risk it, but at the same time, it gets bad. Like, Drumheller, he hated the preseason, never watched it. I agree. I'm not watching it either. I don't feel like just watching second and third stringers just competing for a job that, most likely aren't going to have an effect on the team, but it shows. And it's not just the Eagles, it is most of the NFL. Like, you could say the sample size where Pittsburgh, they actually played a decent amount of their starters and then they got smoked by San Francisco, but I think San Francisco's good. But with that being said, this is what you get. You get really, really, really sloppy football to start the season. It just kind of sucks. Like, I'm glad we got the win. Glad we eked it out. I really think had they gotten some more time, especially with new coordinators, like we were, I think we were upset last year that Hurts didn't see any snaps in the preseason because we said he didn't earn it. At least this year he earned it, but you could tell they were just missing continuity. Like they're just off. So that's a big thing to me. There's a reason why we have preseason. It's not just about the bottom half of the roster. It's about getting in sync. And I agree with you. The joint practices, they help, but they're forced situations. It's not game situation.
Yeah.
There's a lot there, I know.
Yeah, a lot to digest in that. But I mean, obviously, kind of coming back to the same, position as I was and you are too. So I think we agree. You can take a lot out of that game. Now, thanks for checking in, Adam. And yes and no. And I say this only this much. Hurts missed the play to Smith down the sidelines that he would have hit a lot of other times last season. So there was also another play, I don't know if you've seen it yet, that he decided on a run-pass option to hand it off to Gainwell when Goddard would have scored a 50-yard touchdown. I don't know if it was the play calls as much as it was Hurts. And I'm going back to this, just kind of getting back into the rhythm, taking the safe plays because he hadn't played as much, knowing it's a game on the road. And here's another point, knowing it's a game in the rain. He's very risk averse when it comes to turnovers, and I'm good with that. And I totally get it. So I'm not sure as much as the play call was a little bit more on number one. And again, walked out with a win. Jalen Hurts threw for 170 yards. He coughed up the football. He never does that with the fumble late in the game. He didn't play his best game, and they still did pretty well. So I take a lot out of this. The one, and a lot of positives, I should say. The one thing that probably concerned me a little bit, I am worried about the safeties. I'm a little bit worried about the safeties. I think going over the top 2 or 3 times there for touchdowns, Mac Jones isn't great. For him to expose Reed Blankenship and a couple others, and now Reed's out tomorrow. A little worried about the safeties if I came out of that game with anything. But then if I came out on the flip side, Jalen Carter is a monster. Monster. So they're good and bad on both, right?
I want to piggyback you on that point. Safeties and linebackers. We lost Nakobe Dean. Not that he was doing much. He really didn't have a good game, but we picked up Rashaan Evans, who was a first rounder, I think, back in 2017.
Yeah.
He's on the practice squad, but Nick Morrow has been brought up. It's looking like a mix of Christian Ellis and Nick Morrow. We're thin, and we were exposed over the middle throughout the day on Sunday. And we are playing a Minnesota team who, has Justin Jefferson, coming up, who had a very, very bad game, was shut completely down last year, week 2, Monday night in Philadelphia. So, that's on his mind. He's ready for revenge. So you got him. You got Jordan Addison, who I think scored a touchdown the other day. And you got TJ Hawkinson, who, I think is ready to cause havoc over the middle. And as of right now, I don't know if our linebackers will be up to the task. So I think he's going to have a very big night. It's just going to be bend but don't break type of defense. Minnesota, I know I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but I can get back into that. But just about the point with the linebackers, and you saw what New England was able to do. They were not afraid. Mac Jones was not afraid to go over the middle because we did not have an answer for it. So I agree with you. So on top of safeties, the linebackers, really the middle up back end of the field, because as you saw, the pass rush was there. Jalen Carter was there. Jordan Davis was effective. So that's good to see. It's good to see. Very encouraging, because that's needed he needs to get going too. It can't just be Jalen Carter.
Right. I mean, all good points. And there's some worries going into week 2, and we'll get that in a second with all the injuries and the situations they're built in. But one thing this team has had and does have is depth in a lot of key positions. Maybe not as much as the ones that they, sacrifice, punt on to say. But the other positions, they are pretty deep. And running back's one of them. They're going to be okay. No Gainwell, and I love Gainwell. They're going to be all right.
I just didn't see that coming. I didn't know that he was having a rib issue. I don't know if I missed that during the game or what, but I think that was a shock for everybody when it was already said that he would be out tomorrow night.
Yeah, it does sting a little bit. That is for sure. But, to close out the game in New England, we live and we move on. I think Desai had a decent game. Obviously, we're not going to get 70 sacks this year. I think I hope everybody understands that. And it's not because of necessarily they don't have the talent there. It's because they don't have to play like 10 backup quarterbacks like they had last year. No, you never know. That could change. But
and you got 8 against Carson Wentz in Washington.
Yeah, 9. I think it might have been, but 8 or 9, right? Yeah. And then, you look at it, let's be real. One thing they know about the Eagles is they're going to create pressure up front. They're going to play a little smarter than other teams. They're going to get it ball out quicker. They're going to play, run pay RPOs. They're going to get the ball to the running back. So they're not going to allow the Eagles pass rush, except in the late in the games. And that's what happened here. Late in the game, they knew they had to throw and could dial back and peel back their ears, like they say, and get those sacks, those key sacks late in the game. Also, one really nice spot, I thought, was Jordan Davis. We weren't sure what we were going to get at him, but the forced fumble early was such a huge turning point in that game.
Yeah, that was much needed. I mean, the defense is not firing, just making opportunistic turnovers. And that's what they did last year, too. If you remember the tip pass by Kaiser White to Bradbury, who had a pick 6. So it's kind of like they followed the same recipe as last year. They needed defensive help to get them over in a close game on the road against a competitor that you didn't think you were going to have as much of a struggle. And then, like you said, they went 14-3. So it's definitely doable. I think with the rain, the weather, I know the second
that was key
up and stuff like that, but I wouldn't set your expectations based on week 1. We talked about all the reasons about the lack of preseason, lack of continuity, this, that, and the third, new coordinators. Nobody should be panicking at this point. I mean, obviously we won, but trust me, a lot of people are panicking at this point. I would not rest your laurels on what happened in week 1. I would say in 2 or 3 weeks from now, if they look the same and, they have a couple losses mixed in there, get ready. But you know what? This team is too good to not be there. So I don't take a lot out of the way that they won this game. It's just that they won the game. And that's not even being a homer. They're better than what they showed.
Adam, good question between Swift, Penny, and Scott. And, before the season, if you had any chance to follow, even what Tony and I were talking about, it was all Gainwell. Thought he would be the starter for this team, and it definitely showed he was. This one throws a little wrench in it. And the reason I'm not to sit here and do this, it was more of now I'm thrown for a loop. I was dialed in. It was just everything I read, everything I saw going from, anybody that was reporting for the team, it just felt like Gainwell. So this is what I'll tell you. I think Scott will be used more than people think. But I think it'll be more of a 40-40 Swift Penny with a little 20% Scott mix in, and you'll see Scott in between the 20s. I think you'll see him down low there. I think they trust him more near the goal line. They'll try and get Swift in the open field. So definitely between the 40s, they'll try and get him the ball. And Penny will be your typical, first, second down back here that gets it. So 40-40 between the top two. And I think Scott gets a decent amount of burn.
No, I absolutely think so. Because I think the thing is that Gainwell kind of encompasses, I mean, he's not the big body, but I feel like he can do a little bit of everything. And now you don't have it. So I think now, and not that Gainwell is ever going to be a bell cow for a team. I don't think he ever has that in him, but he does pretty much have the skill set, I think, of what you want.
Who's a bell cow anymore?
No, I know, but I mean, he's no Derek. He'll never be a Derrick Henry. No. He'll never even be Tony Pollard, and that's Memphis. And I think that would be at his absolute ceiling, which obviously would be amazing if he were Tony Pollard, but he's a little smaller. But Gainwell does do everything besides being a bruiser back. And even still, he's no pushover. He's not as small as Darren Sproles, for example, or what have you. But
I got you.
That being said, I agree with your take on the 40-40-20 because I think that's kind of a mix of all these players. Like we look at it, Swift is the pass out of the backfield. Penny is the bruiser. Scott is the in-between, push at the goal line type. So they all kind of do something where Gainwell kind of encompassed all of it.
Yeah, agreed.
We are looking forward. Since it's a rib thing, I feel like it's not going to be a long-lasting issue. So I would be interested to see what it looks like next week if he comes back. How do the percentages split up after that? That's what I will really be looking forward to come week 3, week 4.
Yeah, and we're about to get into it, but I think the interesting point that you're alluding to is the Eagles actually have a really long break now after Thursday night because they don't go to Monday night the following week with Tampa. So, they're probably looking at this like, hey, if I rest him now, he's back for that Monday game. So I'm with you. I think ribs are always one thing. It's pain tolerance. That's what they say. If he can tolerate the pain, I think we're going to see him out there come that next Monday night. So with that said, let's flip the page and move to week 2 here. But before we get there, let's just talk quickly about one thing here. Week 1 in the NFL was what I'll say. Crazy is probably a wrong word, right? But we always see different things. Crazy. Yeah, but we always see different things that happen. And I'll just ask, what was the one thing that stood out the most to you over week 1 in the NFL?
The one thing.
I'll give you
mine. Part of me wanted to say Josh Allen just being absolutely careless with the ball. Don't get me wrong. Like, we know how good the potential of the Jets, defense, of how good it can be and how good it was. But that was crazy to me. But what I'll say is, and I don't know why I'm surprised, but Miami just going absolutely bonkers. Like, don't get me wrong, we all know how good Tyreek is, and really, I mean, it was mostly Tyreek. I feel like even I didn't hear Jalen Waddle called that much or anything like that, but that high scoring game between the Dolphins and Chargers, I just didn't see that happening. I didn't see Tua throwing for 466, but when you got Tyreek at full go, that was kind of one of the more like crazy things I just did not have on my bingo card.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. Cease brought up one of mine. I mean, that was just, oh man, just to see that
was the obvious one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge Rodgers guy, as we all know, but seeing that, another one, Bengals losing that bad, I'm not surprised. I took the Browns all day, every day. Another team that, with a calf injury to Burrow. If you would have said Burrow playing that bad, I agree. But Bengals losing, maybe not that much because, look, he didn't play any. They had no reps going on. T. Higgins getting 0 catches was a little surprising, some of that stuff. But, in the end, I guess I'll say from this standpoint, the Cowboys winning 40-0. I mean, I think the Cowboys are better. I think the Giants think. I already told you they're last week. I had Washington in 3rd, but 40-0 was a little surprising to me. That's the biggest blowout in the history of that matchup from a shutout standpoint. 35-0 was the only one before that. So, does it make me that much more concerned about the Cowboys? No. Don't. It's still Mike McCarthy and stuff, but 40-0 did surprise me a lot.
A lot of factors I feel like played into that. Just like with a lot of these games, a lot of factors played into it. I mean, that was like hurricane type conditions, with the rain and everything like that up in New York, and but I agree with you. I think the Giants just were not ready to play that game. They just were not there. Cowboys were. Don't get me wrong. I think we are going to finish better than the Cowboys, but they made a statement and they took advantage of a situation. They're not doing 40-0 to us. It's just not happening. I'm not just saying that as a homer. Like, it's just not. I just really, with the weather, and I just feel like the Giants just kind of sleptwalk into that game. So that was crazy as well.
Yeah, it was just a little bit, wild how that all turned out. But with that, let's move on to week 2 here. It's coming up quick. Mark, you're going to the game?
No, I am not.
Okay. I'm not either. I do have tickets, but got a few things going on, and I decided that I'll sit back here and watch with the boys, and can't wait to do that. But it is a little bit reminiscent of last year from the standpoint in week 2. The Eagles played the Vikings on Monday Night Football and just annihilated them.
Yeah,
annihilated them. But that was the Vikings coming off a what we'll call an emotional week 1 win against the Packers at that time. I think it was Christian Watson dropped one, and then Rodgers was, it was just a weird game, and the Eagles coming off a struggle. And I think people just didn't give the Eagles as much credit as what they were supposed to be. And they just rolled, I think 24-7, something in that range. But it was domination from the start. They manhandled them, like 200 yards rushing. I think it's going to be a little different this week. And I'm just curious what you think. I'm not giving predictions yet, but I think this one, with the injuries, the Eagles have scared me a little bit. But also, I think it motivates us with how sloppy we looked on offense to go into this game with that extra dog in them. So I think there's a couple factors in play here. I don't care what the Vikings are bringing. Brian Flores worries me a tad, defensive coordinator, because he's a Bill Belichick disciple, but they've seen enough tape to know what the Patriots were doing. I think we got motivation. I think we got injuries, so it could go either way, but those are the things I'm looking at going into this week.
Well, you look at it, the Vikings are coming off of a loss that should have happened, against Tampa. So, it's kind of like roles reversed. Like, we kind of squeaked out a win and they lost. So it is the reversal of what came into last week. But like you said, was not a good game by us. So that they're working twice as hard or that much harder, and they're preparing and they're getting ready to go. And I think that Nick Sirianni is going to take it seriously. He's going to take this short week of practice seriously. The injuries are a big point. Again, not getting into predictions, but I think this game is probably closer than the line suggests. I do. It is a tough spot. You're coming back, and something that I mentioned earlier, like Justin Jefferson was held to nothing.
When we
again, Darius Slay had him in check, and I think Darius Slay, it would probably be smart of them, especially with James Bradbury being out, big injury. Josh Jobe, who will be, filling in for him. I think Slay is probably going to spy. I would think that he follows him around the field. I don't think they're going to do, because I'm pretty sure the Eagles corners like to stay to their sides. But with Bradbury being out, I think you have to, move Slay. So I think Jefferson goes off. Like I said, between the safeties and the linebackers, I think G.J. Hawkinson is going to be able to have himself a game. The offense was very poor for Minnesota, which Minnesota should have a good offense. So I think they're going to come out firing. But I think the Eagles offense is also going to play better in this game. I think they have to. I think this is a bounce back for Brian Johnson. I think this is a bounce back for Jalen Hurts. Our receivers played well, but I think we got to, besides we talked about the percentages of the running backs being used, I think they actually have to get Swift involved, and they have to get Goddard involved. Him having one target, ball thrown way above his head, missing him open a couple times, just not seeing it, going, forcing the ball to AJ down the field when he had Goddard right below him. It's kind of like last year. Think about last year. In the Detroit game, Devontae had 0 catches because the one catch he had was called back on a holding penalty. So what they do first play against the Vikings, they throw a screen pass to Devontae just to get him the ball, say, here's the ball, here's you catching it, and Devontae had himself a good game. I think they're going to do the same thing with Goddard. That's just, I don't know if it's going to be first play, because I think that might be predictable, and I think the Vikings will be looking for it. But I think we're going to see a heavy dosage of Swift and Goddard.
I think you have to, right? I agree with you from that standpoint of everybody's got to eat. Now, I'm not as probably, maybe I'm a little off from the Swift point. And I'm not saying it won't happen, but I guess what I'm saying is, if he gets involved or not, I'm not, I think he is good, and I think he would make some differences, but Penny and Scott, I think, will be fine too. But the Goddard point, I think, is well in line here. He's got to get going. And like I said earlier, there's an absolute, I wish I could show it on the screen here, play where he's walking in for a 50-yard touchdown, but Hurts kept the ball. Gave it to Gainwell. But Goddard's a big key. He's a guy that drives this offense a little bit, especially when they're going well. When they're not going well, he's not going well. So he's a big key to get involved early and often. I also think Devontae and AJ both ate in week 1. They both did well. They didn't blow up.
No.
Both had similar target shares, which was fine. Even we saw our boy Quez get a couple looks, right? Especially in the bubble screens. But I think this week we'll see a little bit more of one of those two. And if I had to bet on one, I think it's going to be Devontae. I just think he's going to be the guy that can probably take the top end off that's a little easier. So I expect big things of the Eagles offense this week. It was sluggish. 4 field goals out of Jake is not where they want to end up. And I mean, one touchdown drive was the only touchdown drive was like 20 yards as if the Jordan Davis fumble. So all those things said, it's going to be a lot more on the defense. I think your point about Justin Jefferson not doing great last year, I mean, he was unguardable in week 1. So it'll be interesting to see how they try and box that in. C says he's going week 7. I might be too. I think they're on Kelly Green that night, so we'll have to talk. But Mark, with that said, give me some thoughts of where this game goes in a prediction.
So I think that, one thing that the Eagles weren't able to do in New England with the weather was they usually something that they used to their advantage last year is chuck the ball. They chucked the ball deep last year early in games. They weren't able to do that. They didn't do it. Towards the second half, they tried doing it. New England said, go ahead, and it really was too late. There were, you had that nice play by AJ, but it was called back because they ruled it not a catch. Like, they tried making it happen, and I think New England was ready for it at that point. I think they come out early and often, and I also think that, we talk about Goddard. A lot of Goddard's touchdowns come on, like, long runs where he gets, an 8-yard, like button hook almost, and then he takes off. He's almost like a longer extension of the screen game in a tight end capacity. I think he gets involved. I think that like between that and then, like you said, I think Devontae probably is the guy who's taking the top off the defense. I think that changes the way that the game is played. It's going to be a tight one. I'm probably not straying. We're going predictions now, correct?
Yep, go for it.
I'm probably not straying too far away from what I had last week. I would say that the Eagles come out of this. It's going to be somewhat of a higher scoring affair because both the Eagles was 25-20, and I think it was 20-17. I think both offenses are going to eat tomorrow night. So I would probably say 31-27 Eagles at home.
31-27. And Thursday night football is weird, right?
It is weird.
You get those like big scoring weeks, or you get the no scoring weeks, and then not much in the middle. Yeah. And what was your final score again?
31-27. The line that I saw is 6.
6.5. I've seen 6.5. Yep.
The Eagles don't cover. I think it's going to be like, again, good offensive game, going to be kind of ugly on the defense. So, and like I said, both offenses are going to eat.
No, I like it. So I'm just flashing Ceases up there, 27-24. That's really interesting. 6.5 is the line. I think you guys both respect the Vikings, and for the most part, I do not. But I think this is a tough situation, right, in some aspects of the game where the Eagles are now expected to win. Last year, I think, I was so excited for week 2. I think I put the most money I did on any game in the season, minus the playoffs, on week 2, just because I knew the Vikings were soft up front and knew the Eagles could expose that. And I think it hovered around 2. Like, Eagles a short favorite at home, and now we're talking a full 6.5, 7. And Mark, you've seen it drop to 6 because of the injury concerns. I do think they pull this game out, but I'm nervous. I'm a little tentative here. Cousins, is he great? No, but does he give the Eagles fit sometimes? Yes. Good enough here to make this a game all night. I'll take the Eagles. I'm with you guys. I think the scoring, you say 31, C says 27. I'm going to take the Eagles here in somewhere in the, I'll give it the 30 range. I say they pull this one out 30-23. It's a weird cover, but I think because I think the Vikings are in it all game, and I do think there's points to be had, especially with the safety position being a concern. And Bradbury out, cornerback's going to be rough this week. They're going to have to figure out ways to just confuse Cousins and create pressure, and really in the end, turnovers last time they played the Vikings were huge. So 30-23 Eagles.
Yeah, I can take it.
Nice. Well, with that gets us to the Eagles portion of this show. But I will say there's some other NFL stuff that we like to do here, Mark. So let's kick it off with our 3-packs. Give us a quick recap of last week, or do you want to just
No, we can give a recap. What do we say? You were 2-1.
2-1.
0-3, but we'll just all right. In my defense, week 1 lines are really weird. I'm not the gambling guy, and I just had no read for the situation whatsoever. Going over my stuff, I mean, I did not expect the Rams. The Rams completely, there were these talks about Stafford not being able to communicate with his young players. They're looking down at their phones. His wife's on podcasts, and they go and completely smoke the Seahawks. Falcons took care of the Panthers, and it wasn't handily. That game went back and forth a lot.
It did. And Carolina had the lead, but just let it slip.
And then that Ravens-Texans game, it was close for a while there. Really, Baltimore, I think the score looks bigger than what was actually played. For a while there, it was very tight. Baltimore didn't really do a lot on offense against the Texans. Now, I know Texans have decent defensive players, but I think that score was deceiving.
I agree. The Texans were one of my favorite bets. I was with you there. I write for another website, and Texans were in my bets for last week on that site where I went 3-1. That was the one loss. So I was with you.
Yeah. But, we go back at it. We get back on the horse. Never say die. I'll never say die. We ride again. I'm 0-3, but let's go.
Let's ride. I love it. So, with that, I'll give you a soft landing spot here because I'll go first. All right. We're in the 4th and go trucker cap tonight. The Birds, Sundays are for the Birds, obviously getting ready, even though it's a Thursday night game. I'm feeling good about this slate this week. I played in one pick 'em pool, went 12-4 last week. Not going to say that's going to repeat itself every week. It's not sustainable, but got a little pulse on the situation now. And I'm telling you, I am just not sold that the Chiefs are going to rebound that easily this week. Jacksonville, Duval is going to be live. I would take the Jags 3.5-point home dogs in this situation. The Chiefs still got to figure out. I think Kelsey's not going to play. I just don't think he is. He's still questionable. Hasn't practiced much this week. Jacksonville, I still think they're not as good as, I think, a lot of people think they are, but they're good enough here. And I think they're running to the Chiefs at the right time. They played them tough twice last year. Don't forget, the playoff game was a tough game. Chad Henne, I think, was in for a couple minutes. That was when Mahomes hurt his ankle, but came back in and got through it. But give me the Jags, 3.5.
I'm pretty sure, the Colts beat the Chiefs last year early on.
Week 2.
In overtime, pretty early. So I feel like I agree with you. This is a good spot for the Jags and AFC South team to take advantage of Kansas City, especially while they're reeling without other players. So I see what you did there, and I'm for it. I'm going to talk about a team that I somewhat in passing talked about earlier when I talked to a crazy game, but I'm going to take the other side of it. The LA Chargers, they visit the Tennessee Titans. They are, well, I'm still going to go with it. I read the line wrong. I don't know how. I realize it's a -3 line, not a +3 line. I don't know why I thought it was the opposite, but even still, I think the Chargers, lost the game against the Dolphins. They were right there through the thick of it with them. I think, again, we're always, I don't know. I feel like, not that we're ever actually rooting for the Chargers, but I feel like with Justin Herbert and the weapons that they have, you're just like, they got to make it at some point. Now, their coach is unlikable because he's a doofus.
Yep.
But you just know there's so much talent. There's just something with the Chargers. You're just like, come on, just pull it together. Like, make some noise. Take down the Chiefs. Do something. Like it's the stick figure with the stick trying to make the, piece of wood move or whatever. Anyway, Chargers going to Tennessee. Tennessee had a tight game against the Saints. Really, it seemed like who wanted to win that game. I know the Titans are home, but I still like the Chargers -3 at Tennessee. Now, I'm betting against the home dog, so I was, but I'll still go with it.
No, I'm not against it. I just always worry about that coach and that quarterback.
Yeah, I know.
They just find ways to lose.
I hose myself, but I'm still going to stick with it, knowing the information. Like I said, I have plus and minus dyslexia tonight, so
no, it's no problem. I like that I'm watching Jacksonville get it only 26% of the money so far. It's looking like. I love to look, from a small snapshot of where people are putting all their money, and the public doesn't win a lot. They win some. They don't win all the times. And one of the games I'm looking at that really intrigues me, I'm going to line up in the Seattle-Detroit game. Last year it was 48-45, 93 total points. The year before that, 51-29, 80 total points. As much as I'm going to lay cheddar on the over, I'm going to say this much. Seattle's not as bad as you thought in week 1. And Detroit got a little lucky with their carelessness and won a gift wrap. I'm going to call it game because of the way Kansas City played there. Throwing that pick 6, Kadarius Toney gave them the game.
Yeah,
I got it. All the hype's on Detroit. And I love it. I love Dan Campbell. I love all that stuff. This is too many points. Seattle is better than the lines think. It's up to 5.5. Give me Seattle plus 5.5.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was actually thinking about that one because I like the Lions. I like what they have on offense, but they didn't show enough against Kansas City. They really, really should have done a lot more than they did against them. They did not take advantage of that situation. They did because they won, but I agree with you. Way too many points. I'm going to go into a game that really frustrated the hell out of me on Monday night, the Jets-Bills game. So fantasy football, I ended up drafting Josh Allen in all 3 of my leagues. It's just the way the draft board went out. And I used every curse word in the book. Like after the first interception, I'm like, okay, that's stupid, whatever. But he did it again and again and again. And it was carelessness. But, I think you had mentioned, and if not you, other people have, the Bills regressing this year. And I was wanting to believe that they would win the East. And they still can. I'm not saying that they won't. I think there was a lot going on in that Monday night game. But with what they did against the Jets, I think the Jets are a good defense, but Josh Allen was very careless with it. I think the Bills bounce back. I think the Bills win here, but 9.5 is a lot of points for a Raiders team who just played the Broncos and they took care of business. And 9.5 points at Buffalo, kind of like the Raiders here. I'm going to take the Raiders at 9.5, but let me see. Yep, I still have 9.5 here on FanDuel too. So I'm going to take the Raiders to, keep it close.
Yeah, I had Buffalo regressing a little bit. I did, and I don't want him to. But this guy throws pick after pick, turn after turn. I lost a game by 0.6 because of him. He's so reckless with the ball, and at this point in his career, how does he not learn that? They've had their chances. They should have at least been to a Super Bowl by now. And I can only think this is just going to get worse. Stephon Diggs trying to put on his best face in game 1 and dap him up. I got it. This happens game 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Diggs ain't doing that.
Be over pretty. I don't know if you saw the video that came out today. People think it was a reporter, but I think it was PR staff for Buffalo. But it was a girl, I think, completely shit on him, just being like, he'll say F you to your face with a smile on. He's this, he's that. About Diggs.
Yeah.
And it was a hot mic because they didn't realize that they were on mic, and it was really bad. It just, look, it means nothing out of anything, but it just it shows he's a problem.
Yeah, he is, and he's going to make that.
Quick.
I mean, if they're not winning games, now they should win this week. But I hear you, and with the Vegas, yeah, that's a lot of points. So, all right, I'm going to try and close mine out here. Man, I'm torn between two games, but I think I'm going to settle in, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take. Yeah, I'm going to take the Houston Texans +1 at home. I think, like you said last week, they were in that game a lot longer than the score suggested.
Yeah.
They couldn't convert in the red zone. They had some penalties. They had some fluky turnovers that let Baltimore, score. And then it goes back to first round draft pick quarterbacks just not being good.
And now you got two of them facing off against each other.
And you do. You absolutely do. So I like Richardson. I think Richardson's going to be maybe better than Young and Stroud from a fantasy perspective. I'm not sure from a winning perspective, but I think D'Amico Ryans will find a way to confuse him a little bit. And I ultimately think Houston has a little bit more weapons. I think Nico Collins is good. I think they're going to be fine with Dalton Schultz. I think that's their tight end. Excuse me if I missed that. I know it's it. And then, Damian Pierce. I think they're good enough. Give me Houston +1.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I'm with you on that. I completely agree that Baltimore game was closer than the score suggested. I'm going to end out going the opposite of what I did last week. I'm pretty sure I did. Yes. Last week, I took the Seahawks at -5.5 against the Rams. The Rams were a shocker. The Rams were a surprise. So now you're thinking, okay, the Rams doing what they did last week, they have to come back to earth, right? Yeah, they will. They'll come back to earth in some way. Obviously, they're playing San Francisco, but this is a divisional game. They are home. San Francisco completely mopped Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. I think San Francisco is feeling themselves. But the difference here, I think, is it's going to be just a tighter knit game. Again, I don't think the Rams win this one outright. They could. I'm not there's sometimes where I say they're not going to win it outright. But with regards to this, the Rams have a chance if we're seeing this Matt Stafford that they have. But it's a chance. I think the 49ers still win the game. Have no issue with that whatsoever. But I'm sorry, I'm on FanDuel. I have it at 7.5. If you're getting 7 or less, then I'm looking San Francisco here. But I think that half point over makes me feel comfortable. It gives that touchdown. I really think if the Rams are half decent this year, then they'll keep this game close.
Yeah, I was kind of on to the Rams as a potential over 6.5 win candidate early in the year, just before the season, I should say, just because, you still got Stafford. You still got some star power there. And you still got McVay. So, they might surprise some teams, and they already did in week 1. So I like it. You're going to go with a Los, and Los, that being the LA Chargers, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the LA Rams this week. Look at you going a little West Coast bias.
West Coast Mark.
What were you, Tupac over Biggie?
Yeah. Big Tupac guy. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. All right. Well, hey, we'll see how that goes. As a recap, Mark going with the Chargers -3, Vegas +9.5, Rams +7.5. I'm going with Jacksonville +3.5 at home, Seattle +5.5 on the road. I'm taking another dog, a home dog, Houston +1. Looks like I like to hang out in AFC South with a little NFC West mixed in. But with that, got a few minutes here left. And as we say in the top banner there, we are Philly 4-4-4. There's not much to talk about in the Sixers front. Not a lot on the Flyers, but there is one team still playing. They lost 3.
Wait, you don't want to talk about Danny Green coming back? You don't want to spend time on that now?
I'm good. Mo Bamba? Is that who we got? I know we got a center there. Yeah.
Mo Bamba.
No, I'm good. And I want to give no time to that team right now because, I could go for 45 minutes of how much I hate how they've done everything this offseason. But I go with the Philadelphia Phillies. Tough, man. They lose 3 or 4 of the Braves, but luckily, Colorado beats the Cubs for a couple. We're still holding on. And, where it's tough for me is Christopher Sanchez pitches a I shouldn't even say pretty good. A really good game tonight. Offense doesn't show up. Yesterday, Zach Wheeler pitches a poor game. Offense shows up, but we blow it late. It's just the yin and the yang with this team, the mix and the match. they lose every close game possible, and the games they win, they're usually by a wide margin. They can hit miracle home runs. They've hit a home run in the 8th inning or later to take the lead or tie the game 5 times in the past 2 weeks. Are 0-5 in those games. I don't know if they have it. Alvarado, when he needs to shut him down, can't. Kimbrel, when he needs to shut him down, can't. Sir Anthony Dominguez, get out of here. Stinks. And don't get me started on Bilotti and the other guys. So it's just in the starting pitchers, the only one that I trust right now is Wheeler, but then he gets rocked up and bad outing. I can give him one, come back and get him the next time. But where is there any trust in this pitching? And on the flip side, the offense, it's good, but it's good when you need to come back.
Right.
You can never start early.
Close, right. Or even when you need to close out the game, like you think about it. Think about last night, they come back and then JT is up with 2 on no out. JT strikes out, Castellanos hits into a double play.
Yeah, all 3 whiffs. By the way, he didn't even come close.
JT strikeout. Right. Yeah. Again, I know you and I have held him accountable. There's some people out there who have held him accountable, but I love him. He's a great catcher, and he's done a lot. But he's been getting away.
He's been terrible
with murder because nobody is giving him shit for his terrible at bats, taking the bat out of our own hands time and time again. Nobody has held him accountable out of everybody. Mm-hmm. It's very frustrating to say.
No, it is, and he's been terrible at home, batting under 200. I don't even get it.
I don't know why he's gotten better on the road. There should be no issues with him. There's no Turner issues. He's still BCIB here. Like it's kind of unacceptable. It's kind of unacceptable.
This team has turned it around with the offense because Trey Turner. Now, Shore has been very good too. He's got his average above 200.
Right.
And Harper's been good too of late. He's up to 17 homers now. Where's that power outage that everybody was worried about? But it's Turner. It's Turner why they've turned around.
Yeah.
Castellanos and Real Muto have been really bad.
Really bad. Yeah.
Of late. I don't know. I'm still like, here's where I'm at with them. We were, and I think I was in the 90% confidence range around All-Star break. They would make the playoffs. They're going to make it, right?
Yeah.
And I know you were upwards of there too. I'm not sure they can recreate that magic last year. I'm starting to doubt myself.
It's trying to recreate it. I feel like they're going to feel like they need to do it. And there was a stretch there, but again, realizing who they were playing, but there was a lot of magic for a couple weeks back, probably about 3 weeks ago. And probably, the beginning of Turner's run, it felt like the magic was coming back.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're going to be able to sustain. It's just going to be tough. And it's not that they don't have the magic. There's a lot of deficiencies that they need to overcome now. Because like last year when they got together, they kind of everybody got on the same page at the same time. The pitching got on the same page. The bullpen was fantastic, which the bullpen has been very good this year, but they've fallen off the past couple of weeks. Now we're starting to get that decline. And it's just like, we got the offense going up. Now we got the bullpen going down. It's not what you wanted. And it's really pitching in general. But the bullpen usually is always sometimes more important than a starting pitching. Because this is
playoffs.
Well, think about it. Think about the teams of yore. When I talk about yore, I talk about 07, 8, 9, 10, 11. In 08, our bullpen was dynamic. And our offense was never out of games. You could go against any starter, they could shut you down for 7, and then they're putting up 7 runs between the 8th and the 9th inning. Well, we're putting up those runs, but we're also giving those runs up in that same time frame. Can't sustain. So I agree. For them pushing and trying to recreate the magic, I don't know if it's going to be there this year or not. It's tough. I hope. But again, things can change. When October comes around, something could change in the air. Maybe it happens. But last year, but remember though, think about it. I'm putting myself back in my shoes. They had a really bad September last year, and they almost didn't make the playoffs. And it kind of took. Now we did it ourselves, but Milwaukee was kind of collapsing at the same time when we were in Houston. Remember, there was it was getting dicey. I don't think we clinched until like game 160, and Nola pitched against Houston. But we were So then I gotta take a step back and think like things could change. Now again, we're looking at what is physically out there. What's physically out there is they're not performing as well as they should be, but things also did turn around late last year too.
Yeah.
I mean, who realistically did we think before that ninth inning in St. Louis? Did we really think we had the magic? No. Once that ninth inning with the Gene thing and everything like that, that's when it spruced up in the playoffs. So it's maybe I'm hoping it happens like that again this year.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, Nicky C swinging at first pitches. I'm with you, C. Do I think they're making the playoffs? Absolutely, they're in, and I still think there's little to no shot they get worse than the first wild card. I just, I think they're 3 losses up on the Cubs, and we're talking less than 15 games left. Phillies do have a couple tough series, Braves being one. Mets, you don't know what you're going to get out of them right now, but they got 2 series against the Mets. Not a great team, playing a lot of youngsters, but a team that's beaten Arizona 2 in a row. So you never know there, but Pittsburgh's coming in, should be able to, we're going to be all right. That's all I'm getting at. The Cubs still have a couple tough series, I think, left. I think they're going to Arizona, so you got those 2 teams fighting each other. Here's what I will say. Where you, Mark, go back to 2008. The bullpen was so important because our starting pitchers were like Jamie Moyer and Joe Bland. Outside Cole Hamels, who was great, yes, what carried us was get 4 or 5 out of those guys, let the bullpen close it down. This bullpen's talented enough to do that.
Sure.
So we'll have to see. And getting the home field advantage. Yeah. Getting home field will be huge. I'll end with this with the Phillies, and I'll pass it back to you one more. Tonight was very important. I'm going to tell you one reason why. The Braves celebrated pretty wildly on the field. The I say Eagles fans, but the Phillies fans were pretty adamant in their opinion of the cheering and the activity by people like Ronald Acuna Jr. This is going to go a long way if they have to come back here at some point. Okay? Yeah. I'm just going to say the Braves are not built for tough. We saw that last year. So I'll just – no. I think the Braves might want to be careful what they wish for. They're better. They're great. They're an awesome team. Like everything fantastic.
But that's kind of the Braves' MO. Think about it, since, when they went on that streak and they won the division 16 years in a row. They won 1 World Series, I think, against Cleveland in 95 or 96, something like that, right? Yep. And, they had all that talent, Maddox, Smoltz, Glavine, Chipper Jones, Andrew Jones. Like, you top to bottom, they were a fantastic lineup, but they just never could put it together. And then you look at these teams that we've gone against. Last year, the Braves were better than us on paper, and we took it to them. We lost 1 game. We took it to them. We made them pay, and they're, flapping their wings and, moonshots and, and Wheeler's got a bad taste in his mouth right now, after that game the other night. And, the way that Ronald Acuna was celebrating, that I agree with you. This was not the way to go about things. Like, maybe they're better about the way that things happened last year, but Philly, Red October, it is a different beast.
Yeah.
It is a different beast. Like, when those rally towels are waving, when that place is amped up. I mean, I got to go to, the World Series game, even though we got no hit. The vibes are electric. You don't want to mess with this team and with this lineup the way that they are. We showed that we could take care of their bullpen. We going even after tonight's game, I think the run differential, I think they only won the series by 4 or 5 runs in 4 games. The Phillies hung with them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, the Braves, if you look at the one team that matches up very well with the Braves outside of the Dodgers is the Philadelphia Phillies. Right. We will be able to hang with them, and we're able to hit their bullpen. We're able to hit their closer for sure. Iglesias blown 4 saves all year, 2 against the Phillies. So, yeah, I'm with you. I just wanted to point out the point tonight. Yeah. Braves are awesome, but what they did tonight, let's remember this one. Let's mark it down. Here, what is today? September 13th. Let's talk about this one in about a month from now.
I agree with you. I think this could be a big storyline if they meet up in the second round.
Yeah. Awesome, bud. All right, that wraps it up for this week's show here on the Heat Ratio Sports Network. We will be watching the Eagles tomorrow night. Vikings come to town Thursday night football. Can't wait to see what kind of adjustments are made on both sides and just have an all-out awesome football game between myself and Mark. We both have some big points being scored. We had some listeners and some people typing in big scores as well. So think of an offensive output. Appreciate Adam for checking in and all you others that were watching tonight. Until next week, I'm Dave Gluckman. That's Mark Tomasini. We are Philly 4 for 4 and so much more. Fourth and go. Let's get a Birds win.